There's a question many people have never seriously asked themselves. And it wasn't because they weren't capable or it wasn't even because they didn't care. It's because the world hasn't required it in quite this way until now. And that question is, where does my judgment actually create value? Not my tasks, not my activity, not the things I can list on my resume, but my judgment. Where does the quality of how I think actually change outcomes? Welcome to this fiery episode of 126 of Instant Expertise Marketing plus AI. I'm Yvette Brown, co-founder of X Promos. I became an entrepreneur at 23 when I started a promotions agency with my then 29-year-old business partner, Shari Nomadi. Together, we've built campaigns for global brands, and today we're building decision confidence in the age of AI by keeping humans accountable, technology understandable, and outcomes measurable.
And I'm Shari Nomadi. Yvette and I rarely think alike, but we do usually land in the same place. And this topic feels especially important right now because many people are quietly worried about AI replacing value without ever clearly identifying what their value was in the first place. I know that sounds harsh, but I mean it compassionately. Most people were trained to measure value through busyness, responsiveness, volume, execution, being the person who gets things done. Those are real strengths, but that is not the whole story, is it?
No, and when AI enters the picture, something gets exposed because if part of your part of your identity has been tied to output, and now output can be accelerated, you naturally start wondering, where do I fit? And that anxiety makes sense, but it also creates an opportunity because it forces a deeper decision that many people should have asked years ago. Where does my thinking change results?
Yes, absolutely. And I think people underestimate how rare that question is. Many professionals can tell you what they do, but fewer can tell you why their presence matters. They can describe responsibilities, but struggle to describe leverage. And that difference is what matters now. Because AI is making task level work easier to access, so what remains valuable becomes clearer.
Yeah, it's really true, Sherry. Because valuable doesn't always mean flashy. In fact, it rarely means flashy.
Right.
Sometimes judgment shows up in really subtle ways. You know what matters first. You can get a sense of when something feels off, and you can simplify complexity for others. You probably have a sense of when to move and when not to. You're also probably good at framing a messy conversation into a clear next step. The thing is, those things often go unnamed, but they are incredibly valuable.
And often invisible. And really, that's part of the problem because people are rewarded for their visible output. It's the meeting, the deck, the report, the email, the task completed. But judgment often sits underneath those visible things. And it's the reason the meeting mattered. It's the reason the deck focused on the right issue. And it's the reason the report led to an action. The reason the email landed well and successful. The reason the task was worth doing at all. That's harder to measure, but it may be the highest value layer.
Yeah, and oftentimes the things that have the highest value are the hardest ones to measure. But speaking of higher value, in our AI Fluency Foundation's team cohorts, we often talk about the hours saved with AI and how you can use them on higher value activities. The human stuff. Because it's harder to measure, many people actually undervalue it in themselves. They just think, oh, I'm really good at reading a situation, or I'm good with people, or I'm just good at seeing what matters. We're here to say, no, these are not just skills. Those are leverage skills. Those are the kind of human strengths that become more important when the information becomes abundant.
So, so true. Because when everyone has access to the tools, raw access stops being the differentiator. Judgment becomes the differentiator. Taste becomes the differentiator. Discernment becomes the differentiator. Context becomes the differentiator because tools can generate options, but they still need someone to know which opinion matters most.
It's such a key point, Sherry, because AI can increase possibility, no doubt about it, and it's amazing at that. But possibility without judgment can just become chaos. Because guess what? You have more ideas, you have more drafts, you have more data, you have more recommendations. But if no one can prioritize, interpret, or decide, more just becomes a burden. And that's why speed alone is not enough. And that's why many teams feel busy, but not actually stronger.
Yes, that is absolutely true. And this is where I would invite people into something practical. Think about the last 3 decisions you made this week, not task, decisions. Maybe you chose where to focus. Maybe you resolved tension between people. Maybe you decided what was good enough to ship. Maybe you noticed a risk that no one else was naming. Maybe you reframed a conversation so progress could happen. Now ask yourself, what part of that required judgment?
Yes. Because once people do that exercise, they often realize something important. Their value was never only in doing, their value was in deciding. And deciding takes many forms: deciding what matters, deciding what to ignore, deciding what quality looks like, deciding what story to tell, deciding what risk is acceptable, or deciding when timing is right. Those are the decisions that shape outcomes constantly.
And most people have never been asked to define themselves that way, actually. They've been asked, hey, what's your title? What are your skills? What software do you know? How many years' experience do you have? I mean, they're useful questions, but they are incomplete. I think a stronger question now is where does your judgment improve the system around you?
That's perfect, Sherry, because like once you know that, you kind of stop feeling generically threatened, right? You start feeling specifically valuable. And that's a huge emotional difference. We talk so much about the emotional transformation around AI, and this is kind of like a key component of that. Because, like, when you're sort of facing a generic threat, it feels paralyzing. But when you have a specific value, that feels very stabilizing. And now you can adapt from strength, a position of strength, instead of trying to combat fear.
So true. And it also changes how you use AI. Instead of asking AI to replace you, you should ask AI to support you where it matters most for you. So if you're a strong person at strategic framing, then AI can help you explore options faster. If you're a strong communicator, AI can help you iterate language. If you're strong at pattern recognition, then AI can help you surface more signals. If you're strong at teaching, then AI can help structure your learning. Now, AI becomes your amplifier.
Yeah, and that's the phrase I would 100% underline. AI doesn't automatically replace judgment. It amplifies judgment, or to be fair, it exposes judgment where it's weak. And, that's uncomfortable, but it's super useful because if someone has poor discernment, AI can magnify bad decisions faster, right?
Hmm.
If someone
Hmm.
has strong discernment, it can actually AI extend your reach. Same tool, different outcome. And that's because the human layer matters.
Absolutely. And that should be encouraging for everyone because it means that your development still matters, your thinking still matters, your maturity still matters, your experience, all that still matters a lot. The people who assume that humans are becoming irrelevant often confuse automation with wisdom. And those two things are not the same thing.
Okay, 100% true. Okay. Automation and wisdom are not the same. And, I think this is in particular kind of hits me hard, Sherry, because many seasoned professionals have an advantage when it comes to AI that they don't realize they 100% underestimate. And that is that, every experience creates a pattern memory, right? If you've been around the block a few times, like Sherry and I, you've seen some things, right? You've seen
Yeah.
cycles, you've seen dynamics with people, you've seen what looks good but fails later, you've seen things that feel slow but they might win long term. And that kind of pattern recognition, the thing you feel in your gut, that is powerful. AI can totally support that, but it doesn't automatically replace it.
No, it sure doesn't. And for younger professionals, there's opportunity also. You can build judgment faster if you become intentional. Use AI to learn, use AI to test your ideas, use AI to compare decisions, use AI to reflect. But do not confuse tool fluency with wisdom because wisdom that still has to be built over time.
Totally. And you know, our point here is that if AI has made you question your relevance, maybe the better move is not to panic about that. Maybe it's inventory, right? Maybe take a sort of a personal look and say, where does your judgment right now create value? Where do people rely on your perspective? Where do outcomes improve because you were involved? And where do you consistently clarify, prioritize, interpret, or decide better than average? Because that's gold. And that's the layer you should strengthen.
And once you know that, you stop competing on speed alone. And speed is a race that many people do not need to run. There
I
are
don't need to
much
run.
better races to chase, let's face it. Clarity, discernment, trust, direction, taste, all of those compound differently.
Yes, they totally do. So, next week we're going to bring all of this that we've been talking about to a decision because by now you've seen the gap, you've seen the map, and you've seen where your value may actually lie. The next question is, what now? How are you going to operate from here?
And that answer matters more than any other tool will ever.
So, if this conversation surfaced something important, good. Because many people are stronger than they realize. They've just never clearly named where their value lies. And that's one of the most important power shifts inside the human AI value map. Enrollment is now open for our next cohort on Maven. So if you're ready to understand where AI creates value and where you create value inside it, we would love to work with you to show you. The details are in the show notes. Thank you for listening, as always.